Have you ever woken up after 40 and felt like everything you built is suddenly shaking? The job feels uncertain. The relationship feels distant. Your health sends warning signs. And you sit there thinking, at this age, shouldn't I have it figured out by now? If that sounds familiar, you're not weak. You're human. Life after 40 has a way of testing us in ways our younger selves never imagined. We've invested decades into careers, families, reputations, and identities. So when something falls apart at this stage, it doesn't just hurt, it shakes the foundation of who we believe we are. Today, we're talking about something powerful. After 40, strong people respond differently when life falls apart. They don't avoid the pain. They don't pretend everything is fine. And they definitely don't wait for someone else to rescue them. They choose powerful responses that slowly rebuild their stability, confidence, and direction. Let's begin with the first response. When life collapses, strong people allow themselves to feel the impact instead of running from it. That may sound simple, but it's not easy. Many of us grew up believing we had to be strong, which often meant suppressing emotion. We learned to push through, keep quiet, carry responsibility without complaint. But ignoring pain doesn't make it disappear. It stores it. I once spoke to a man in his late 40s who lost his job after 22 years at the same company. For months, he told everyone he was fine. He updated his resume when the interviews, smiled in front of his family. But at night, he couldn't sleep. His sense of worth was tied to that job. Finally, one evening, he admitted to his wife that he felt ashamed and scared. That conversation changed everything. Not because the problem disappeared, but because he stopped pretending. After 40, strength looks different. It's not about acting invincible. It's about having the courage to say, this hurts. When you allow yourself to acknowledge the loss, the disappointment, or the fear, you begin healing. You stop wasting energy fighting your own emotions. The second powerful response is this. Strong people take full ownership of their next move. Notice I didn't say they blame themselves for everything. Ownership is different from blame. Blame keeps you stuck in the past. Ownership moves you forward. When life falls apart, it's easy to focus on who caused it. The boss who let you go. The partner who walked away. The market that crashed. And yes, sometimes other people are responsible for what happened. But strong people ask a different question. They ask, what can I control now? A woman in her early 50s once told me how her divorce left her feeling completely lost. For years, she had organized her life around her marriage. When it ended, she didn't just lose a partner. She lost her sense of direction. For months, she replayed every argument, every mistake, every betrayal. But one day she realized something powerful. She couldn't rewrite the marriage, but she could decide who she wanted to become next. That shift changed her energy. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? She began asking, what can I build from here? After 40, taking ownership might mean learning new skills. It might mean seeking therapy. It might mean having difficult conversations. It might mean starting over in a smaller apartment or taking a lower-paying job temporarily. It doesn't feel glamorous, but it feels empowering. The third response strong people embrace is rebuilding identity from the inside out. Here's something nobody tells you in your 20s. By the time you reach your 40s, you've likely attached your identity to roles. Provider, parent, executive, spouse, caregiver. And when one of those roles shifts or disappears, you can feel like you've disappeared with it. But strong people understand something deeper. Roles can change. Titles can vanish. Income can rise and fall. But your core values, your character, your ability to learn and adapt, those remain. When life falls apart, instead of desperately trying to restore the old identity, strong people pause and ask, who am I underneath all of this? Are you someone who values integrity? Then live that, even in hardship. Are you someone who values growth? Then treat the setback as training. Are you someone who values family? Then invest your energy there while other pieces are unstable. One man I know had to close a small business after years of effort. He felt humiliated. For a while, he avoided old friends because he didn't want to answer questions. But when he stopped defining himself as a failed business owner and started defining himself as a resilient problem solver, his posture changed. His conversations changed. Eventually, his opportunities changed too. Rebuilding identity is not about pretending the fall didn't happen. It's about choosing a deeper foundation than success or approval. And this is where something interesting begins to happen. When you allow yourself to feel the pain, take ownership of your next step, and redefine who you are at your core, the chaos starts to feel less overwhelming. Not because everything is fixed, but because you are no longer collapsing internally. There's still more to talk about. Because strength after 40 isn't just emotional. It's practical. It shows up in daily habits, boundaries, and decisions that quietly reshape your future. And that's exactly where we're going next. When life feels like it's falling apart after 40, strong people don't just work on their mindset. They change their daily actions in small but powerful ways. One of the most overlooked responses is this. They simplify instead of complicate. In crisis, many people panic and try to fix everything at once. They apply to dozens of jobs, make huge financial decisions overnight, start extreme fitness plans, cut off relationships abruptly. The energy feels intense, almost desperate. But strong people understand that when the ground is unstable, complexity increases stress. Instead, they simplify. If finances are tight, they focus on essential expenses first. If their health is declining, they start with a daily 20-minute walk rather than a punishing gym routine. If their emotions are scattered, they create one steady routine in their day, maybe a consistent wake-up time or a quiet cup of coffee, without their phone. These small anchors matter more than we realize. They create predictability in a season that feels unpredictable. I remember a viewer who shared that after being laid off at 45, he felt constant anxiety. His thoughts raced from mortgage payments to his children's tuition to his aging parents. One morning, instead of spiraling, he made a simple decision. Every day at 8 a.m., he would sit at his kitchen table and focus only on job applications for 2 hours. Not all day, just 2 focused hours. After that, he would exercise and then handle household tasks. That structure didn't solve his unemployment overnight, but it gave him control over his day. And control builds confidence. Another powerful response strong people adopt is protecting their energy. After 40, your energy becomes one of your most valuable assets. You don't recover from stress as quickly as you did at 25. Emotional drama drains you more. Sleep becomes more precious. Yet, when life falls apart, many people surround themselves with negative voices. They talk to friends who constantly complain. They scroll through social media comparing themselves to others. They replay worst-case scenarios in their minds. Strong people become more selective. They limit conversations that leave them feeling defeated. They step back from environments that increase shame or comparison. They choose 1 or 2 trusted people who offer support without feeding fear. This doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means being intentional. If someone always reminds you of your mistakes or doubts your ability to recover, you don't need daily exposure to that voice. I once heard a woman say that after her business failed, she stopped attending certain gatherings for a while, not because she was embarrassed, but because she needed space to rebuild without constant questions. She replaced those events with weekly coffee meetings with a mentor who focused on possibilities instead of past losses. That shift in environment changed her emotional state. The next response strong people make is setting boundaries, even when it feels uncomfortable. When life collapses, some people overextend themselves. They say yes to every request because they fear losing approval. They take on extra responsibilities to prove their worth. But strong people recognize that in unstable seasons, boundaries are protection. If you're rebuilding financially, you might say no to unnecessary expenses. If you're healing emotionally, you might say no to conversations that reopen wounds. If you're starting over professionally, you might say no to distractions that pull you away from skill building. Boundaries are not selfish. They are strategic. There's a story of a man in his early 50s who decided to switch careers after burnout nearly destroyed his health. When he enrolled in evening classes, he had to say no to some social events and even reduce overtime at work. Some colleagues didn't understand, but he knew that continuing the old pattern would keep him stuck. 2 years later, he transitioned into a field that aligned with his strengths and values. That shift began with boundaries. What's powerful about simplification, energy protection, and boundaries is that they quietly rebuild self-respect. Every time you choose what supports your future over what temporarily pleases others, you send yourself a message. My life still matters. And as that message grows stronger, something shifts internally. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as an active participant in your next chapter. But there's one more layer to this strength after 40. It goes beyond stabilizing your life. It's about transforming the way you view adversity itself. And that's where we're heading now. After 40, strong people eventually reach a moment where they stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is this teaching me?" That shift changes everything. It doesn't mean you're grateful for the pain. It doesn't mean you wanted the loss. But it means you refuse to waste it. Adversity in midlife often reveals patterns that were easy to ignore when things were going well. Maybe you tied your entire identity to achievement. Maybe you avoided difficult conversations for years. Maybe you neglected your health while chasing financial goals. When life falls apart, those hidden cracks become visible. Strong people use that visibility as insight. A man who went through bankruptcy in his late 40s once admitted that, for years, he overspent to maintain an image of success. The collapse forced him to confront habits he had justified for decades. It was humiliating at first, but it also became a turning point. He learned financial discipline, rebuilt slowly, and later described that painful season as the most honest period of his life. There's power in honesty. When you face your mistakes or blind spots without self-hatred, you grow. You become wiser, more grounded, less driven by ego. And wisdom after 40 is more valuable than raw ambition. Another powerful response strong people embrace is rebuilding confidence through action, not affirmation. At this stage of life, empty motivational phrases don't work for long. Telling yourself, "I am amazing," feels hollow if your life feels unstable. But taking small, consistent action rebuilds belief in a real way. If your health declined, schedule the doctor's appointment. Take the walk. Cook one healthy meal. If your career stalled, update one section of your resume. Reach out to one contact. Learn one new skill. If your relationship ended, spend one evening rediscovering an old hobby instead of replaying arguments. Confidence is not restored by thinking. It is restored by doing. Each small action sends evidence to your brain that you are still capable. And capability restores dignity. Finally, strong people after 40 choose to serve. Even while rebuilding, this might surprise you. When life falls apart, it's natural to turn inward, but helping others, even in small ways, reminds you that you still have value. Maybe you mentor someone younger in your field. Maybe you volunteer once a month. Maybe you simply become more present for a friend who is struggling. Contribution shifts your focus from what you lost to what you can still give. And here's something beautiful. When you combine emotional honesty, ownership, simplified living, protected energy, strong boundaries, learning from adversity, consistent action, and contribution, you don't just recover, you evolve. Life after 40 is not about proving anything to the world anymore. It's about living in alignment with who you truly are. If you're watching this and your world feels unstable right now, take a deep breath. You are not finished. You are not behind. You are in a refining season. Strength at this age is quieter. It doesn't shout. It doesn't show off. It chooses wisely. It acts steadily. It grows deeper roots instead of taller branches. I'd love to hear from you. What has life taught you after 40? What challenge are you facing right now? Share it in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. If this message spoke to you, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We're building community here where experience is valued and growth never stops. Remember, even when life falls apart, you still have the power to decide how you respond. And that response can become the strongest chapter of your story. Wishing you resilience, clarity, and the courage to rise again and again, no matter what season you're in.